of you. Anyway, thanks for coming back this afternoon. I'm here. We're going to do a fireside chat. There's no fire, but maybe we could put one on the monitor down here to, do it that way. But the afternoon, I don't know what you call it, Q&A is with Tim Mahlman of Klout. He's the Chief Revenue Officer, and I'm going to have him come up here now while I describe you to him, or him to you. He's actually had a lot of experience in the business at places like Yahoo and Blue Lithium and things like that. And Klout does have a marketer proposition, but I would argue it's quite a lot different than what we are used to in sort of more traditional forms of online media. So, as you may have read, Klout has been kind of in the news lately because they dared to tweak how they determine their scores. So we will talk a little bit about that. So Tim, have a seat. I've got like 16 papers here, so I have to remember all my questions. I've never done this before, so just bear with me.
We'll roll with it.
So first, we're going to have to distinguish in this session between Klout with a C and Klout with a K. So I'm going to start with Klout with a C. How do you define it? Because there actually are different forms. I mean, obviously Justin Bieber has a lot of clout, but we're not all Justin Bieber, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I guess the way I looked at Klout is the way that I always perceived it, just from a traditional perspective, how not only we are in a society, but also how advertisers look to reach people that do have influence. How, when they create a voice, the people within their circle drive action around what they say, whether it's someone who's actually looking to buy a television or get a recommendation of what movie. We turn to the people that we rely on that are either experts in that field or ones that we feel are influencers, and their opinion matters very much to us, and eventually then drives that kind of action.
Well, how would you say this concept has changed? Like, if I'm a suburban mom also, in addition to doing stuff like this, and I feel like I feel like I would have had Klout in my community to some extent because I do the various volunteer-y type things we all do, but I've noticed how that has changed with social. I've had sort of a fascinating morning while I was doing all this other stuff, looking at a friends of my local school district group and watching all these people. Maybe their Klout scores aren't rising, but they're rising because of the social platform and because this Facebook group exists. So has the concept of Klout changed with social platforms? Is really that?
Yeah, I mean, again, going back from a traditional perspective, it's not new that traditional advertisers have always been trying to find those people that have influence to be the one that amplifies their product. One of my first jobs out of college, I was working as an intern and then eventually full-time, where we were doing product placement in certain DMAs. And what we wanted to do was to profile, it was a Clorox bleach, and they were looking to find people that were heads of the PTA, heads of the soccer society, heads that were following all of the key pieces within that community. And the brand wanted to get that product in their hands because it was a new product and they wanted them to test it out. And that, to me, was a form of targeting influence. Granted, a very archaic way of having to then go into a specific market and then research who those people are, but nonetheless, that was an advertiser looking for someone who has clout, because if they've gotten that role of running the PTA, there's people around this person that they feel very influential around, and they should be putting this product in front of their hands. Socially, I think, and digitally, what makes it really exciting for us is you can find those same people, but it's a hell of a lot more efficient and scalable and easier to be able to run against, because what we are now communicating through our social graphs, it allows us to be able to then see how people are engaged and responding to that, and therefore we then create clout and influence around those people.
So, one question. I mean, well, how many platforms do you guys include now in Klout Score?
Yeah, right now we have 15 platforms overall.
Okay. So, one question that, Tim and I kind of talked before this, we were talking about, okay, what are you learning about different social platforms since you're looking at all of them? Yeah. So I'm just going to throw ones at you. I know we agreed to them. I hope I don't forget. Facebook. Okay, let's start with Facebook. What are you learning about Klout on Facebook through your all the data you have.
Yeah, I think the reason why we diversify across so many platforms is because how we engage in each social graph is very different. And in the case of Facebook, what we've seen is there's a multitude of different ways of how people actually use it. But for the person that's using it outside of our business, but it's that woman who lives in Des Moines, it's that guy that lives in Phoenix, it's very personal. It's their life. It represents who they are. And it's a definition of what they do by posting the photos, where they're checking in, and updating on how their sports teams interacted or how their kid's soccer game was. So it's a lifestyle play, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, well, okay, so Twitter.
Yeah. So Twitter, again, taking our industry out of it, but really looking at, again, the people that we're most interested in profiling. They're using it for a lot of some of the cases are using it for thought leadership, putting out questions to, is the school cafeteria food as healthy as I'd like it to be? Really putting out thought-provoking questions that are asking the people within their circle to engage in a conversation. Whereas I think when our industry, we find people that are actually posting a lot of articles, you don't find that with the people that are really engaged in Twitter. They're using it as a place to express their voice in ways that allow them to that you couldn't before.
Well, I did kind of wonder who the people on Twitter are. I know that's a really big, basic, blank question. Again, going back to my regular life, virtually nobody that I know from my non-social media life is on Twitter. Now, the same people may be really actively engaged on Facebook, but I don't know whether you see Twitter as being more of almost like a promotional platform, like, hey, everybody, I'm here, or what do you see in terms of kind of the overall engagement level on Twitter, and how are those people different than the average Facebook user?
Yeah, well, I should also preface that. I mean, Twitter's going to know their audience a heck of a lot better than I do. So I preface all of this based off of how we are interacting with this data. So by no means am I trying to convey a message of what Twitter would probably know much more of. But again, I think the way that we see it and how our users are interacting with our brand within Klout, it is using it more from a thought-provoking because they are posing questions that open-end that allow a conversation to start. And I think that's what makes it so appealing with the people in these circles that we're targeting against is they're trying to create conversation about topics that affect them within their community. Mm-hmm. I think that's what's been the most interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So Google Plus, if there's anybody there. Oh, come on, that was a joke. I'm sorry. So what do you see on Google Plus so far? I mean, you've only been measuring this since what, for about a month now or something like that?
Yeah, month and a half.
Yeah.
And again, it's a lot of postings of articles and still personal, but nonetheless, it's kind of a combo between both. But I think more leaning towards what we would assume that someone on Facebook would be using.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one, although I could ask others, if anybody else wants to know the profile of a social platform, now's your time to ask, is Tumblr.
Yeah. That one actually I think is the most interesting because it really allows these users and how we engage with them to truly express themselves above and beyond what you can do with these other platforms. And it allows them to truly express who they are and how they are interacting with their communities much greater. But I'll give you another one that I think is really interesting is YouTube. YouTube is fascinating with when we run our Klout program, the amount of videos that our users create based off of the programs that we put together are amazing. The quality, the work behind it, I think to me, since joining Klout, that's been probably the most fascinating side of how the users have really taken advantage of the power of video.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because YouTube is a social channel, and yet I think so many of us don't really think of it as one. I mean, I think of it as a place I go to watch videos. And even though you look at the comments, I mean, comments are so commonplace now, you just don't think of it as a social channel sometimes.
Exactly.
I posted a TV spot once, and people still love it. And it's that Direct TV misery spot with Kathy Bates. And I'm like, damn, I should have really built that into a little business for myself. But whatever. So now... I don't know how many of you guys have heard about this little Klout, changing of how you do Klout scores. Okay. Now I want to also ask, how many of you guys checked your Klout score after you saw this announcement? Okay. So did it go up or down? Yeah, mine went up, so I'm fine with it. Anyway, so talk about like how you kind of changed things or tweaked things or refined things. I don't know what the official language is, and then of course we have to ask you how you improve it now that it's now that it's a little different than it was a week ago.
Yeah. So what we did, and it was launched yesterday, was we did update our algorithm, and it's something that we've done, in the past. But I think because how large we've gotten over, the past particularly 9 months, it's created a lot of user comments, to say the least, about their displeasure for why we did it. But the reason why we did it is simply why I think all of us are actually in this industry. We continue to want to keep refining and innovating our technology. We didn't change and overhaul the system. We just made it tighter. The thing that makes us evaluate true influence and people that do have clout are, not only what you're writing about, but what is the quality of what you're writing about, and how are people interacting with that and engaging with that, and how many times are they engaging with that, and then most importantly, who they are. So it's not about the quantity of how many times you're out putting out this content that we're tracking. It's when you do, how are those people interacting with it? And of those people, what are their scores? How influential are they? And those are the tweaks that we made to the system to really improve and refine it. And we think it's actually going to be a much better process, a much stronger, transparent technology, because also in our user interface, it allows you to be able to see exactly why the scores went down. Why did your amplification drop? Why did it go? So we're trying to open up the kimono more and more so that you, the individual, know exactly why your score raised and went down. And then the next point is, how can you then try to improve it? And really, the only way to improve it, there's no trick. It's just having people engage in the quality of the content that you're writing about. That's simply it. There's nothing more, nothing less. There was people that have written about how you can game the system. Well, the only way I know how to game it is writing great content and getting people within your circle engaged in it.
Well, I have to say, reading some of these comments, there were like at least 1,000 on whatever post I saw. And a lot of them were, fairly indignant, I would say, is that there seems to be this perception of that there's like the 5 things you need to do to build your Klout score. And it almost begged the question of me, well, how much of this is people just doing things to build their Klout score instead of people doing things to kind of further their engagement in the community? It was almost like a disconnect to me. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but that kind of seemed really odd to me. It's like, no, that's not the point, people.
Yeah, actually, I found it all a positive for our company, because if nothing else, it actually got more people to really realize what we are. I think the people that have expressed their voice and to us, we love the fact that they're able to. It's the whole point of why we're in this medium. Were people that actually use these scores for professional purposes. A lot of these are professional bloggers, professional writers, and they've actually integrated their score as a form of verification, so that if they're out trying to get some of their materials sold to other companies, they can validate it by saying that they had a Klout score of X within specific topics, therefore that they were influential and one that publication should want to buy or have them be a part of it. So we totally understand the rationale for it, but again, we're going to continue to keep refining it. We look at our technology and what we've built and the future of why we continue to keep innovating as PageRank for people. And as the ones that did the amazing job at PageRank and Google, they were refining their algorithm on a weekly basis and doing major upgrades every 3 months. Well, I've got a team of scientists and engineers, and they're tasked with that same feature set to do the same with ours. So as much as it might continue to cause a little heartburn for some people, I think what it will show is it will become a more accurate tool, and therefore that allows not only companies that use our API for analytics or advertisers that want to then run campaigns to target truly those influencers. We are feeling confident that as we innovate, it's becoming that much more stronger of a product.
Well, yeah, we were just saying, while some of you were eating, Tim was just telling me about how, when Google was doing all this, that they're rating sites and ranking sites, and you guys are ranking people, and people who run sites can get ticked off, but people get, kind of even more emotionally invested, I would say, when the rank is about them. So it's kind of an interesting comment on the whole way that Klout is kind of different from sites and kind of raw site numbers, which are not about people ultimately.
There was two or three different people that were very vocal on many of the different organizations in writing about their score, and they also were tweeting about how they were upset about their score, and the amount of people that were influenced by what they were writing. I was kind of joking with an engineer is they're going to take a look in about a week later and they're going to probably see their score going up. So the amount of anger that they were having towards their score going down, so many people were retweeting and liking and updating, and the conversation got greater and greater that as a result, they're going to look back and probably find, hey, there's a couple new topics that they're going to have, but they're going to also find themselves seeing their scores go up because it's exactly what we wanted in the system. When you write quality content and people are engaged in it, your score is going to be rewarded as a result.
Well, just one last question on this, and then we'll move on to other things. But so this ability to see why your Klout score is rising and falling, is that up yet, or is that okay? So
yeah, that went up with this new launch.
Okay. So you can look after the interview, but you can kind of see what's going on with you. Anyway, so obviously you're the chief revenue officer. And you're, the first one, I would assume, at Klout? Okay. Officially joined in September, been consulting like all year. So how do you build a revenue model out of this, and kind of what's the state of you working with, the ad community to kind of build on, this kind of official metric of influencers?
Yeah, the business was built without really having a substantial revenue model. They really initially, the engineers and the founder were wanting to just build what we would call the standard of influence and be able to then have this as a research tool that companies could then use from an analytical standpoint. I think with the evolution of that is we started sampling out what we call perks. And for those that do have scores, you'll see that you sometimes will get asked to have perks. It's still in its very early stage. We were doing it more or less from a beta perspective. But what we're starting to find is the same way that offline advertisers are trying to find influencers in a way, they're also trying to find them online. And so they have been proactively reaching out to Klout to create a relationship that allows us to be able to take their keywords that they buy within Google and match that to our topics. And once we do, we then look at the ranking of those people within those topics. And those advertisers then create a relationship that allows them to have their product sent directly to those users. And when those users are actually given that product, they receive a code of conduct from Klout that states that they are free to do with this product as they please. It's not a paid promotion. And they are not obligated to write anything. However, if they do, here's the hashtag that we request that you use, but also make it clear that this is not paid promotion. And that's how it started. And what ended up happening was, advertiser giving us 200 of their products was generating 50 to 100 million impressions of content from these users across all different social graphs. And we then had another advertiser come in and say, hey, we liked what you did with this automotive company. We want to take it with our CPG client. And then another advertiser came and the movie releases. And then another advertiser came with television releases. And next thing you know, it really started to morph out. And that basically is what created perks. So for those of you that actually do have a Klout score and you do see it, there's not that many perks that are actually up there because we haven't really put much of an effort in putting out the perks program. And when we do, we have to pre-qualify to make sure that we think it's a perk that our influencers would feel like they are getting that VIP treatment as a result of receiving it.
Well, one thing that Tim and I had, we were talking about like a month ago when we first met. Now we're old friends, but was just the whole delicacy of I don't even want to say using influencers, of employing them, whatever. But you guys have obviously had to think about that a lot, and I think there's kind of a broader learning for people in the marketing business about how to use influence in ways that really are sensitive to kind of what you're doing. So, if you could kind of elaborate on what you think is kosher, what's not kosher in this whole world.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had our lessons learned. Those that have the scores out there, you might feel this way. The people that have Klout in their life, and for that matter, we feel that really everyone that is out there in the social medium has Klout. It just needs to be defined in how it is, and when we're able to track exactly what kind of topics they're most interested in. We feel that really anyone who actually has a voice in social media has something to talk about and has an engaged audience around them, and we want to find them and match them up with these advertisers. But we've definitely learned our lessons in what are the right types of perks to send out to our clients. And our clients, the ones that have Klout scores, they really feel that if they are influential when it comes to technology, they want to see the first technology that's being produced. So lessons that we learned. We just launched last week with Microsoft phones. They just launched Mango, and our users got to actually test out that OS first before anybody else, and they're in the process for right now over the next week actually using it and writing about it. That's a great perk because they're giving us something that no one else can have today, or Audi giving us the A8 before the A8 actually was out, and allowing 200 of our users to be able to use it over a weekend and be able to talk about it through their social medium. Those are the kind of perks that we found have been really successful because it really puts our users in a very honorary kind of place, and they then in turn give great response as a result.
So like, how do you figure out kind of what within Klout are the people that get these? Because it's not all, you don't have to have a Klout score of 90 to be involved in Klout perks, which actually is sort of antithetical to what I think we've all been led to believe, like higher is better. And I'm not saying higher is horrible, it's just that it's a little more nuanced than that.
Yeah, actually, from the business side, we actually don't focus at all on anyone who has a Klout score over 70. So for those of you out there, you probably will never see a perk. Because what we feel, and again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier on, is people that have scores in the 70s, they're politicians. Our president's got a score of 92. They're celebrities. Our Justin Bieber's got a 99. They're athletes. Ocho Cinco, the athlete, has got a 94. So there are people that are, or writers or bloggers. They already have their own influence in a whole other medium. What we want to do is find those people, like I defined, that woman in Des Moines, that man in Phoenix, that when walking down the street, all of us in this room would not look at them and say that they have Klout. However, when you get them online, they do have Klout. They do have influence. And what we are able to do, we feel that's really exciting, is introduce those people to advertisers to create a relationship that allows them, the influencers, to amplify this message of their brand in ways that you've never been able to do. And so our world, the comfort zone, are those that have anywhere between a 30 to about a 55. And that's where we usually recommend our clients to actually work with. And those are the ones that are the ones that are amplifying the messages in far greater magnitude than any of the ones with scores higher than a 16 above.
So very counterintuitive. So if your Klout score recently went from 60 to 50, take heart, okay? That's a really, really good thing.
Right.
Well, I'm going to sort of ask one more question, and then if you guys have questions, Sergey's in the back, and he's going to handle you for this session since I'm already up here. Well, I wonder if this starts to evolve into like somebody, like individuals having kind of different Klout scores for different things. I like to think I'm a hugely influential at my local supermarket. When I'm not saying it would ever get that granular, but there are different sort of categories where Klout really, your Klout in a certain venue really varies. I have no Klout in among pediatricians, but I have tons of Klout in other areas. So is that where this could potentially go?
Well, we hope so. I mean, we're not asking to be, as powerful as a credit score, but we do feel that there is a validation to have a social currency, and we do want Klout eventually to be a part of everyone's life. It is in the form of, there is influence that you can create socially, but there's things that you are influential in offline that you may not always express online. And so we are taking measures to be able to take offline influence and allow it to be plugged into our scoring mechanism. We're also partnering with other companies outside of the social graph that allows us to expand into other mediums digitally, so that for those people that I speak of, that middle America that may not actually be on Twitter or may not actually be on Facebook, but they're heavy writers on some of the portals or some of the news organizations. Well, we want to hear from them as well. We want to ingest them and have them be a part of our scoring mechanism. So we're really wanting to continue to keep expanding and build this out so that what we have is every day you are looking at your score, and as a result of how your score is going up or down, there will be benefits behind that by allowing you to have maybe a better table at a restaurant when you make that reservation than you otherwise have, or be able to be a tester for a new product that a consumer packaged good gets to have, or be able to get to see that movie in a sneak peek before anybody else gets to. These are the types of reasons why we want people to be engaged in Klout, and then we in turn are going to engage with those advertisers to have you be a part of that as well.
Yeah. So do we have any questions? Anybody? Well, yeah, back there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm with AKQA Shop. Two questions, really quick. One is, are you guys having any plans to integrate with like Radian 6 or one of these technology companies? And then the other question is around publisher integration. So as like a media buying agency and planning agency, we're starting to look at that Klout score as being essential moving forward. So how do you feel publishers are going to change their model in regards to just whether they're looking at what they're building out from a content perspective or bloggers that they bring in? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. Good questions. So one thing I should also mention is that this month we will have had 12 billion API calls be shot from our servers. So we have quite a few companies, in fact 4,000, that are actually pinging our systems on an ongoing basis. So Radian 6 is actually a partner of ours, and they actually ingest our data right now, and actually it's an attribute into their own mechanism. And with publishers, they're publishers that are now looking to take our scoring and have it be a part of their analytics as well, and how they're qualifying. We've had conversations with companies that want to ingest our data for HR purposes. If they are in the media business and all things being equal between two candidates, look at the Klout score. And if that person has a Klout score higher than the other, that's another attribute that they should look at, because if you're in the media business, you need to know it's social. And if it's this 25-year-old person who might be just out of college, but yet they've got 3,000 people following them and they've got a Klout score of 50, that's the kind of person you're going to want to have in your company. So we're looking at our business in ways not just from, hey, give us a product and let's get it out in front of our users, but also how powerful a tool of this data can be to help companies be smarter about how they are making hiring decisions and how they're actually engaging with their users, or in Radius 6 example, how they can actually make it a complement to their own data.
Yeah. So those are additional revenue streams potentially. Like,
yep.
It's all well. The chief revenue officer, of course.
Right.
It's all revenue streams, isn't it? So are the T-shirts.
Right.
Yes. But let's see. Do we have any other questions? Looking around. Okay, I have one more, which I'm just going to refer to something you said about 5 minutes ago, which is including kind of offline measurement in a Klout score. So I mean, can you talk about that at all? Can you elaborate how exactly that would happen?
Yeah, well, in the short term, what we're going to allow our users, and this will go through the next UI launch of our interface, will allow Klout users to actually go into the system and actually nominate themselves to be influential in certain topics. Because we understand that it's not exactly perfect. There's a colleague of mine in the office who she runs 5 triathlons a year, but yet her Klout score doesn't have topics in running or triathlons. So the new UI is going to allow our users to log in and be able to then nominate themselves for offline influence that just have not been picked up through what they're writing about socially. And to be able to then verify that, you will then have to reach out to 5 to 10 different people in your circle that will then plus K you. And the plus K is that form of validation that, yes, this is a person who does know a lot about triathlons. In fact, before I decide what shoe I'm going to buy, I go to her and decide whether I'm going to go for the Asics or the Saucony. So we're going to allow the users to go in and express themselves on what they do from an offline perspective. From the future is starting to work with those companies that do have offline data, and how can we do database matches that allow us to be able to complement our scoring well beyond just what we're doing socially, so that offline can play into it. And therefore, there are that means so that, in my example, when you do make that reservation, they know exactly what your score is, and they're going to make sure that they give you a first-class service because you're someone that they know is of high influence, and they want to make sure that they get on your good side. Or you register for that hotel, and they know that maybe you're not part of their preferred guest, but you've got a Klout score of 50 in travel. They're going to upgrade you, and they're going to build a relationship. Not because they're expecting you to go out and retweet and update and say that you got the hookup of it, but that if you've got a score of that high, you're someone that they want to have a relationship with. Because next week you're probably traveling somewhere else, and chances are you could also get a hotel room from them in that location. So there's multiple means of how we're going to take offline data to help us be that much more sophisticated with our scoring.
So in other words, get to work, people. That's all I could say. Well, anyway, I want to thank Tim for coming out and
Thanks.
and Tim's allowed to go now. I have to keep emceeing, but thanks a lot, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna